Hello, my name is Zac Head. I'm the Associate Pastor of Worship and Discipleship at Forest Lake United Methodist Church in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And today I want to go over with you our epistle reading from this week, which comes from 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 19 through 24. I'm going to paraphrase this reading, but I am going to keep the text with me just so I don't get too far off. We understand that some of you are suffering unjustly. Some of you are suffering because you've done things wrong, but the whole reason we bring the just punishment up is because we want you to recognize that some of you really are suffering unjustly, and we know the difference. So does God. You see, Christ was punished unjustly. For it is said, He committed no sin, and no deceit was found in His mouth. And so Christ has left you an example. When He was abused, He did not abuse back. When He suffered, He didn't threaten back, but He entrusted Himself, body and soul, to the one who judges justly, who is God. He Himself even bore our sins in His body on the cross, so that we might be free from sin, so that we might live for righteousness. For you see, by His wounds, we are healed. When we hear the reading from the epistle today, it is certainly good news to hear. I've spoken to many of you over the last few weeks about the seemingly unjust, unfair suffering that many of us are going through right now. As I look around the world, not only is there the normal amount of suffering, how terrible is it to have to say normal amount of suffering, but not only is there that normal amount of pain and suffering, the normal amount of hunger and sickness and hurt and grief. Not only is there that typical amount, but there's also this heaping load added on. There's much more sickness right now. There's much more hurt and grief right now. There's much more personal suffering right now, much more anxiety and depression, and many more sacrifices that are being made right now. And frankly, I think it's okay to call it unfair and unjust. Certainly, none of you earned what is happening during this epidemic. And so I want you to hear this. Your hurt, your grief, your pain, your anxiety, your depression, all of that is real. I just want to recognize that for a minute. It's valid. It is perfectly natural for you to be feeling those things right now. You are making sacrifices, and an extra heaping amount of suffering is present in our world right now. So don't think you're going crazy, or you're being over emotional, or you're being overly sensitive. Please know, we're all hurting. Now, hear the good news. Christ also suffered unjustly and unfairly. Here in this epistle reading, we are even given some prophecy that foretold that Jesus would have no deceit found in His mouth, that He would not sin. And yet, He took our sin to the cross, that we might live free from sin in His righteousness. This is good news, folks. It's good news that we have the perfect example for how to deal with unjust and unfair suffering. The way that we might live, the way that we might continue to move forward, is just the way that Christ taught us. All of Christ's teaching, Christ's life, death, and resurrection, Christ's presence in our lives today can be summed up into the two greatest commandments: love God and love one another. And so for the rest of the time that we experience this unfair suffering, And even after that, once we get back to the normal amount of unjust and unfair suffering in this world, remember that we are called through this epistle and through the life, death, and resurrections of Jesus Christ, we are called to love God and love one another. Once again, if you are struggling right now to find an outlet for love that God has placed in your heart, or if you are struggling to find a place to receive love, I hope that you won't hesitate to let us know either in the comments of this post or a direct message to the church. We would love to help get you plugged in somewhere where you can experience the love of God, share the love of God, and be a part of us doing just what we're being called to do here through the example of Christ that we're reminded of here in the epistle reading this week. To love one another. I hope that you'll reach out to us, and we will continue to reach out to you. We love you, and we hope that you will experience God's love even in this uncertain and unfair time.